Bola. If you want to ask anything, we can talk about anything you want to talk about. Then,
Yes. How should we act in critical condition? If in some critical condition, if doctor says that 48 hours is critical for you, or you may got a massive heart attack or massive accident, in that type of case, what one should do to increase the level of their, what you can say, uh, soul situation?
so, I'll tell you about one Raman Bhai, and he used to practice these. Quite old. He used to live in Andheri in Bombay, right? And then the doctors told him that you have about 1 hour left or something. So he got rid of all the pipes and everything. Says now nothing, no drip, and he just sat down on his bed and he practiced 3-step rhythmic breathing and went this way. Right? So the idea is that at the moment of death, can we be in the present moment? That is the most important thing. Usually people are daydreaming or something at the moment of death. So what happens is that death comes, but we are not there to receive death. Right? There's an absence over there. Right? And there must be a presence, hajri jo hai there, at the moment of death. So that is very important. So there's one very famous Zen story that when the Zen student comes to the master, he has to give it in writing that even if the master kills him, he is allowed, right? So, so he was ringing the bell for lunch or something of the monastery, Zen monastery, and the master came from behind and hit him with a bamboo. Right. So he died. The master hit him with a bamboo and he died. And then the master was, criticized a lot in Zen circles and all that. But people who knew that when he was ringing the bell, he must have gone into a daydreaming, right? And the master brought him back to the present moment, right? So he died in the present moment, huh? Which is of a much higher quality than a life of daydreaming. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So, death is, the energy of death is very fast, very, very fast. And we have to practice to be able to be there when that energy comes, right? And so, and if we can be there in the present moment and hold presence in the present moment, then we can witness death also, be a witness to death also. So, first of all, I would start doing 3-step rhythmic breathing, right? Bring sensitivity to the body, and hold the hold the present moment, and be present in the present moment. So these are two different things: present moment and presence, right? So when you dissolve into music, right, you're in the present moment, but there is no presence, hajri nathi. Can you get it? So first is to come to the present moment and then to bring presence to the present moment. I'm there, I'm observing in the present moment. And that will be very important.
It's very difficult, I think. What you say?
Is it
That
difficult?
time, at that time.
is not difficult. It is not difficult. Just the understanding is very important. Okay. What is more important? What is more important? Right. So that is very important. Right. That understanding. Bolo. If you can practice yoga nidra every day, then that is a very good practice. Very, very good practice. Right. Try to roll attention in the body and then just remain in that state doing 3-step rhythmic breathing. It's very, very good practice. What will you have to take? Once in a while.
It's the washing machine, maybe.
Washing machine.
Spinning cycle.
But it goes and comes.
Thing.
It's spinning.
Spinning, yeah.
Okay, anything else? Because we are waiting for Hemant.
Oh, Acha.
Ah.
Okay.
I think they just came through the door.
Sorry, we were tracking it, Acha.
Having it. Should be further back.
What?
It seems like yeah, but it's further back, right? Feels like a yeah.
There was another girl also, Sonal, her name was, I remember. This was just after Tauriya Sahib left. So I taught her the breathing and all that. And she was practicing very hard. And then she was diagnosed with 4th stage cancer. And so all she did for the last few months was breathing and Radha Krishna, breathing and Radha Krishna. And she did very painful cancer. She did not take a single painkiller, no injections, nothing, and she just went through the process of death. Right? Okay, we start. So today we are talking about the feeling of I. Now, see, self-observation is a very, what you call, vast field in the sense, and there are so many things to observe, right? And sometimes we can get what you call caught up in. If we are observing this, not observing that, we forget this. Whilst a very fine shortcut is observation of feeling of I. We don't want to observe anything else, not our thoughts, not our emotions, but where am I getting my feeling of I from, right? Now, on the first day, we talked about two times, the vertical time and horizontal time. We'll just go into that again. So, we say there is one line of time from birth to death. This line of time is made up of small dots called present moments, and each present moment is cut by another dimension of time, right, which is called as vertical time, right? So this is another dimension of time. It is, if you're observing this line of time, you're in this line of time, right? If you're sensing this line of time, you're moving up into another time. This line of time is not a part of birth and death. It's not a part of birth and death. This line of time from birth to death is past, present and future. Past, present and future. So, where is our feeling of I coming from? Is it coming from horizontal time or is it coming from vertical time? Right? The real I is in vertical time, it is not in horizontal time. But our whole life we take the feeling of I from horizontal time, right? Now, what is the first thing that happens in horizontal time? We are given a name, right? Till then, there was some sensitivity of vertical time, right? But the minute we are given a name and within a few months, I becomes the name, right? And now we have shifted from that vertical time where the real I is to horizontal time where we've been given a name. So somebody calls our name and we get the feeling of I. We get the feeling of I. So the false has already started. Now, this feeling of I is composed of three things. Real, which is this, real, which is this, right? The relative, or acquired, and the imaginary. Now, in this horizontal dimension of time, from birth to death, the feeling of I is changing all the time. It is shifting all the time. So, can we observe this shifting feeling of time, this moving feeling of time? Of feeling of I. This moving feeling of I, which is shifting all the time. So we say I as a name, right? And that name now starts studying. Now, supposing he comes from a famous family or a wealthy family. So when he says I, he also means my family, right? So he's talking of which part? Which part?
Acquired.
The acquired part. The family has been acquired. Before he was born, there was no family. Right? The family is acquired. Right? Now he gets a degree. Does the feeling of I change when he gets a degree? The feeling of I now comes from the degree. Comes from the degree. So from the acquired, it has gone into the imaginary. Gone into the imaginary. Right? Supposing I earn some money. Right? So my feeling of I will change overnight. Right? That when I say I also mean the money I have in the bank. Right? So the feeling of I will change overnight. Again, it has gone into the imaginary. But when I'm playing a role, supposing my son comes to me and I'm getting the feeling of I of a father, I'm getting my feeling of I from father, right? Then it is the acquired side. It is not the imaginary side, right? But supposing I say, what a good father am I, how well I look after my son or my children or this thing, then it has gone into the imaginary. So, most people, when they use the word I, most of what they feel inside that I, that feeling of who am I, what am I, is imaginary. It is my money, my degrees, my power, how many people know me, right? It all comes from that. How many friends I have, right? So, this feeling of I shifts from the real to the acquired to the imaginary, and rest of our life, our whole feeling of I is nothing but imaginary. Feeling of I is nothing but imaginary. Now, what is in horizontal time and what is in vertical time? What is in horizontal? Horizontal, that is time. Horizontal, it is time. What is in vertical time?
We sense the I and
No, as we climb
letter.
the ladder of consciousness, which is in vertical time, right? What do we pass through? What do we pass through? Different states,
Of awareness.
different states of consciousness or awareness, whatever you want to call it. So, in this line there is time, in this line there are states. Avastha, avastha, different states. Now, when we come to the present moment, do we have a different feeling of I? Do we have a different feeling of I? A feeling of I not based on time, a feeling of I based on my inner state, based on my inner state. Now, what gives us the feeling of I? What gives us the feeling of I?
Ego.
What gives us the feeling of I? From which center does it come? Does it come from the intellectual center?
Emotional.
Emotional center. Emotional center. Now this is very important, very, very important. that at what frequency of vibration is our emotional center vibrating? Supposing I am angry, right? Is it at a more gross frequency or is it at a higher frequency?
Higher frequency.
Gross frequency. There is more tamas in anger. So it is the gross frequency, right? So if I am getting my feeling of I from anger, that I am angry, right? Or I am suffering, right? If I am getting my feeling of I from anger, from suffering, right? The emotional center, the frequency of vibration is very low, very low. Anger may have a higher frequency of vibration, but the anger, but the emotional center is vibrating at a low frequency because my feeling of I is dependent upon anger. I am angry.
So anger, you are saying anger would have higher frequency than emotional center?
Yeah, anger is an emotion,
Right,
and emotional center is where all the emotions lie,
right.
right? So the emotional center is giving me a feeling of I, right? Depending upon the thought and the emotion.
Emotions.
Now, if the frequency of the emotional center increases, if the vibration of the emotional center, it will give me a higher feeling of I, right? But for that, what do I have to do?
So here you are saying that emotional center would have different frequencies, and as per our state of being or as per our emotion or trait, negative trait or whatever you call it, positive,
Inner
negative,
state.
inner state, right? The frequency of emotional center would change
Would go up or down.
up or down. Okay.
So if the emotional center is more purified, it will rise to a higher
frequency.
frequency. And as long as there are negative emotions in the emotional center, it is always pulling it
Down.
down. Always
No,
pulling.
because you said anger would have higher frequency, that so I got confused in that.
Anger will have a higher frequency, right? In the sense that anger is an emotion. So if I transform that emotion, I get that frequency from anger.
Okay.
It's like sex center and sex act. They're two different things. Emotional center and emotional act. Anger is an emotional act, right? Emotional center is the center in which all these emotions lie. So if the emotion center is a building, then anger lies at a lower level, right? So my feeling of I coming from anger is at a very low frequency. Anger itself is at a very high frequency. I don't know if I'm coming across in this.
So it is a higher negative frequency.
It is higher negative frequency.
Yes.
Higher negative frequency.
Okay.
So, what do we have to do? Why do we have to purify the emotional center? Why do we have to purify the emotional center?
Because feeling of I is going to come from emotion center only.
Because the higher feeling of I will only come from the emotional center, and as long as it is vibrating at a lower frequency, it can never give you the feeling of that real I, the higher I. Now, as long as the emotional center gets attached, what we call rag and dvesh, it gets attached, right? It is always vibrating at a lower frequency. Lower frequency. Now, where all are we attached? Where all are we attached?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Can you see in the physical objects, in our relationships, in our thoughts, right? There is attachment to what you call, right? So we say my pen, physical object, right? So I'm getting my feeling of I from what? My pen. At the moment, supposing she says that, can you loan me your pen? Right? So I say, I don't give my pen to anyone. Right? Huh? From possessiveness. I'm getting my feeling of I from possessiveness. I was getting my feeling of I from anger. Can you get it? I say, I want to buy a new car. I'm getting my feeling of I from desire. Right? So, this is something which we have to observe. Every moment, where am I getting my feeling of I from? I bang my foot against a stone. I'm getting my feeling of I from irritation. Can you understand? So, on this horizontal plane, the feeling of I is changing all the time. I'm talking to him about how much I suffer in life. I'm getting my feeling of I from suffering. Can you see? Right? I'm getting my feeling of I from jealousy. Right? I say I helped him. Right? So I'm getting my feeling of I from self-love. What a good boy am I. Can you get it? So each moment this feeling of I is changing. And if I don't want to observe my thoughts or my feelings, another alternate method is to observe this changing feeling of I. This changing feeling of I. And yeah.
Rajanpa, in that case, we cannot just have any conversation.
Right.
Because any sentence we speak would have some or the other I involved in it only. Any conversation. If I'm not I have to be so cautious in speaking a single sentence, because every sentence would have some or the other attachment of, or some or the other so self-love or jealousy or possessiveness or
Which, can you see it's now if you're observing your self-love, but if you're observing your feeling of I, how easy it becomes to observe self-love.
So now you said all these things, and I'm just thinking of the conversation I had in car with Nitin, and I'm just thinking that so many sentences were layered or covered with all these emotions.
Right? And you're observing it.
Observation after half an hour, when you said all these things. Yeah.
This is a beautiful thing to do, It will, once you start doing this, it will give you such a beautiful feeling. The game of life becomes so, what do you call? Easy. Romantic. Not romance as in attraction and repulsion, but what do you call? Romance into interesting. The game of life becomes so interesting.
Speaking would stop. You would not, every sentence you speak, you have to think, does it come from here or comes from here or comes from here? No, this is not required. This is not required. So most of the time you would be like keeping quiet.
No. What would you try to do?
Any conversation.
No. Just let's do it in another way. We said we are made of
All three.
three parts. So what would be our initial effort?
To get rid
To
of
come to
imaginary.
acquired, from at least imaginary to come to acquired.
Exactly. So you're talking to him in the car, right? Hold the feeling of I of wife. So you have moved from the imaginary to the right. Right? Now, how do you play the role of a good wife? I'm not saying you have to give him a cup of tea every time. What I'm trying to say is that, can you see? Then you're getting the feeling of I from playing your role. But if you're getting angry on him or irritated on him, then you're getting your feeling of I from being irritated. Right? So we want to come closer home. If our feeling of I is in the imaginary, in the negative all the time, then we don't come closer home. Nay.
And I know, but see, angry and all that, those are very, you can see right away. But the conversation I had, now I can think that many things were self-love and whatnot. I mean, and so subtle
Okay.
that when
Let's
I was
put it
speaking,
in another way. In another way. Supposing he's asking you why you did this, right? So you're justifying yourself. So again, justification is a form of self-love. It is a form of self-love, right? I am right. You, what I did was right. I'm putting myself right, right? Now, so you're getting your feeling of I, that I am not wrong, I am
right.
right. You're getting a feeling of I from I am not wrong, I am right. Now, can we pause there? Pause there and say the same thing in another way with a different feeling of I. Then we have to bring in consciousness.
That
We have
is,
to bring in consciousness.
yeah, we have to come to a present moment to say whatever.
Yeah. And we have to change the way, right? So he will ask me, why are you late? Right? So I'll say there was a lot of traffic, right? So that is ordinary, of course, right? But I'll say I was very busy and you know how busy I am. So now I am justifying through self-love. Justifying through self-love. So I can avoid that. I fast by self-love, give upvas to my self-love, right? And I say it in a different way. I say it in a different way. Again, when feeling of I comes in, the tone becomes very important. The very, right? So again, we did that tone intonation over here. Can you say it in a very flat tone? Right? Then there is as little self-love as possible, right? As little irritation as possible. But if I say it in an aggressive tone, then I'm identified, right? Then of course there's a mixture of self-love, anger and everything in that. So just the observation of my feeling of I changes so many things. Yeah, you ask me. So, whenever we react, we are in the second state of consciousness. We've not gone to the third state of consciousness. So, there are definite feelings of I. Reaction, being negative, mechanical, finding fault with others, right? There's a definite feeling. You see, when I'm finding fault with others, there's always this feeling of superiority. There's always this feeling of superiority. Right? Complaining, right? So when we complain, what is the feeling of I? When we complain, what is the feeling of I?
Self-pity.
Self-pity?
If it can go down to self-pity, but definitely in complaining, there is a feeling that something owes me. Right? You owe me because you did not come on time. Right? There is a credit and debit involved in complaining. Can you get what I'm trying to say? Right? So I have the feeling that you owe me, right, and my credit is there. Now, all of us have a deep expectation that tomorrow will be better. And this is inbuilt within us. The deep expectation that tomorrow will be better. Right? So, where does that feeling of I come from? Huh? It is always in the future. The feeling of I is always in the future. Now, when we are hurt, when we feel hurt inside, right? What is the feeling of I? What is the feeling of I?
Grief.
Somebody has not valued me properly. Somebody has not valued me properly. There's a feeling that he has, what do you call, brought down my value. And we always have a high value of ourselves. We always have a high value of ourselves.
રાજનભાઈ તો એટ એ ટાઈમ સેલ્ફ કેટલા બધા આઈ ભેગા થતા હશે ને
Right.
કંઈક એક જ પોઈન્ટ ઉપર ઘણું બધું થતું હોય આપણને.
And this is very good if you can observe all that. That brings in consciousness. Now, which other one will we take? Which other one? Worry. Worry. Right? Worrying. Right? Now, worrying, it comes from the Latin word to ring. Ring. Right? Now, of course, you have a dryer in your washing machine, but in the old days, you had to wring your clothes. Can you understand what you do this thing? Right? So, worrying comes from that root. Right? What is the feeling of I in worry?
Twist.
Somebody is twisting our being from inside. Somebody is twisting our being from inside. Again, in complaining, I am owed. Which other feeling am I owed in? When I'm making accounts. When I'm making accounts with somebody, right? I feel I am owed. Because whenever I write my ledger, I never say I owe to anyone. Everybody owes me. Everybody owes me. Now, let's go a little deeper. What is the feeling of I when you want to take revenge?
Superiority.
Right? The feeling of I, it brings a kind of inner animalism to it. There is an inner violent feeling of I. Right? I want to take revenge upon her, so that you feel an inner violence in that feeling of I, if you are observing that feeling of I, right? Now, I pass somebody on the road and he ignores me. Again, which feeling of I? That he has put down my value. Put down my value. Now, another question we can ask ourselves: does my feeling of I come from the present moment, or does it come from memory? Memory. But when you're relating to somebody, you're very close to the present moment. Right? So supposing we both are sitting together and having lunch together, and I just have the feeling of I of friendliness. then I'm very close to the present moment. Present moment. Can you-
So most of the positive emotions that brings you closer to you.
Huh?
Most of the positive emotions, like gratitude or appreciation or encouragement or whatever. So those emotions
Right.
are closer to the self.
Closer to the self. Because in that the heart opens. And in negative emotions, the heart
Closest.
closes. Right? So the heart opens in that. And in that you are more closer to the higher self. Right? So the emotional center can vibrate at a lower frequency and it can vibrate at a higher frequency. When it is vibrating at a lower frequency, it is in synchronicity with the ego. In synchronicity with the ego. When it starts vibrating at a higher frequency, it starts bypassing the ego because the ego can only vibrate to a certain frequency. Once it goes higher, it cannot vibrate at that frequency. Now, in all this which we did, there's one feeling of I which was common. One feeling of I which was common.
Self-love?
No. You were observing your self-love. You were observing your self-love justifying I am right, you are wrong.
Real life?
Huh?
Real life?
That's not the right answer in that sense. One feeling of I is missing in all this. It's very apparent. She's very close, but she's not giving the real answer.
Yeah.
The feeling of the I of the one who is one who is
Present.
observing.
Of course.
The one who is
But that is when you observe. If you don't observe, like the. No. So, whatever conversation I had with Nitin in the car, right? Observing,
now
I
the
wasn't there.
conversation is getting more and more interesting.
No, really, I want to understand properly. So, observing, I wasn't there.
So then it is not there. Then you're identifying.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But now once you start what you call observing your feeling of I, your changing feeling of I in so many situations, right? Now as we move to a higher frequency, we will get the feeling of I of the
Observer.
observer. Feeling of I of the observer. Okay, getting it?
Yeah.
And this is the beginning of real life. This is the beginning of real life. Brahmvedanji had a saying. He says, all you have to do is every moment ask yourself the question, am I thinking or am I observing? Right?
Bhagavan just to see.
Just to see.
Just to see.
Yeah. But now I'm trying to help you to see. I'm trying to help you to see because when you see, you will see all this. This is all the matter which you will see, the subject matter of what you will see. So now what else do we need apart from observing? Apart from observing. What else do we need? Apart from observing. It's not just the process of observing. There's the energy of sensitivity. There is the energy of sensitivity. I must sense that I am speaking out of self-love. I must sense that I am speaking out of aggressiveness, agra. There must be that. Unless that sensitivity is there, there is no observing. Can you see? So observing and sensitivity go together. Both go to.
So observation brings a sensitivity.
Sensitivity brings the observation.
Observation.
Sensitivity is the key. Always in the present moment.
So you are saying when we observe, the sensitivity comes first?
First, let's say jealousy, right? Jealousy, right? So this deep feeling inside that something is wrong. Can you get it? Right? How come he has and I don't have? Right? Thank you. So there's this deep inner feeling, and jealousy is something where it can go on all 24 hours. It will go on all 24 hours, right? So there's this deep inner feeling that what you call he has something which I don't have, right? And there must be first the sensitivity of that feeling. There must be an inner sensitivity, right? Like we talked in worrying, there must be an inner sensitivity that something is choking me from inside. Can you get it?
So sensitivity is even a finer than the feeling. Finer, what do you call the...
Feeling is of the emotional center, and sensitivity is of the instinctive center. Okay. We have this beautiful story in the Bhagavad where Krishna tells the people of what you call Gokul not to pay their taxes to Indra. Right? So he sends rain. Right? So sensitivity is Indra. Emotion is not Indra. Okay. Sensitivity is of the senses. Indra. He is the lord of the senses. Right? But emotion is not Indra. Right? So, emotion is like and dislike. Now try to understand. This is hot. Hot is what? Sensitivity. Get it?
Now I get it. Okay.
Right? I like hot or I don't like hot is emotion. But both these are so stuck with each other. Can you understand? They're so stuck with each other. Right? So Indra was taking sensitivity belonged to him, but he was also taking emotion. Right? He was taking emotion, which did not belong to him. Did not belong to him. You understand? So what did Krishna do? He lifted the mountain. The name of the mountain is what?
Govardhan.
Govardhan. Go means the senses. Vardhan is expansion of the senses. So you expand the senses, that you separate them from like and dislike. So you say sensitivity belongs to you, but emotion does not belong to you. So you separated the energy of sensitivity from the energy of emotion. Emotion, right? So both must go together, right? Observing, looking, right, and sensing. Both have to go together. Now, in relationships, jealousy, what does it lead to?
You fall apart.
No, what does it lead to? In relationship, there's jealousy. And what is the outcome of jealousy in relationship? Supposing he and me, three of us are friends. Right? Now, he invites him for dinner, does not invite me for dinner, right? So first of all, there's jealousy, and jealousy will lead to what?
Hurt?
Hatred.
No, no.
Envy.
What will I feel? What are these two doing without calling me? What are these two doing? They have not called me. What are
Kind
they?
of conspiring against me?
Suspicion.
Suspicion.
Suspicion. Can you understand? Now, what happens in suspicion? What happens in suspicion? What is the feeling of suspicion? It's one of the worst places to be in the world. Right? Like this house is so beautiful, but the worst psychological room to be in is that of suspicion. Tell me. What happens in suspicion? See, we have been very good friends for 5 years, right? And now he invites him and he does not invite me. What happens to the 5 years?
You start questioning everything.
Huh?
You start questioning.
Goes in vain.
All the 5 years are gone. All the 5 years are gone. So 5 years of milk, 5 years of milk, one drop of curd of suspicion, right? Gone. Can you see? Medwa navigu. Right? So suspicion is terrible. What else happens in suspicion? Imaginary, right? What else happens in suspicion? I'm not talking about suspicion of two people in love, otherwise it becomes even more apparent in that. Can you get it? What else happens in suspicion? We make wrong
Choices.
connections. I will say the first time he has called him. Can you understand? They must have been doing this for a long time. That 5 years is, can you see that? Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So 5 years got spoiled. We enjoyed those 5 years, although that got spoiled, right? But I'll now making imaginary wrong connections. They must have met 6 months ago, right? Now, supposing it is between boyfriend and girlfriend, right? And then the boyfriend will say, she was absent for 1 hour over here, right? Or she may be reading a book in her room, but he will make a wrong connection. Can you understand? In suspicion, we make negative connections. Negative connections. Last 2-3 days I've been handling suspicion. So, right? They make negative connections. Negative connections. Right? But that person understood today. I said that our only thing is to give love. Right? And if you can give love, what is suspicion and what is this? Can you see? And he understood. Right? He understood. Right? So, but now, where does this come from? Where does this come from? Jealousy, suspicion, violence.
Emotion.
Jealousy, suspicion, violence. Right? Right? That very famous movie of Nanavati. I don't know if you saw it. What was the name of the movie? I think Vinod Khanna was there, I think. Achanak, on the Nanavati case, where he murders his wife. Right? He murders his wife. Right? So,
Another feeling is you feel lack in yourself, right?
let down. Let down.
down?
Again, your value has gone
Gone down. So you feel low of yourself.
Low of yourself, right? You make wrong connections. You go into total negative imagination. And it also can lead to violent feelings. right? You may not go and murder the person, but you still get violent feelings about that person. And where does this come from? Where does this come from? From the animal world,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You see National Geographic or what do you call, there's so many channels now, right? And when the animals are in heat, they are violently fighting with each other, violently fighting with each other. Now, we're going to talk about this feeling of I. Some days ago, we talked about having a thought and thinking a thought. So, we make this line in the brain, line in the mind, having a thought and thinking a thought. What happens between having the thought and thinking the thought? Relating to feeling of I. Relating to feeling of I.
Connection.
Future.
Huh?
Thinking of someone's future.
Related to feeling of I. Related to feeling of I.
So having a thought in that still depends. Okay, so having a thought is not in your control, right?
No, it may later on at a very high state of consciousness come under our control,
Okay.
where we may, will away the thoughts completely. But that is different. We don't know, we are not interested in that state
yeah.
just now. We want to reach a state where thoughts don't affect us.
So having a thought is not in our control right now.
Yeah, right now, it is not in our
right
control.
now.
Right.
So it has come or कहिए ना कि अवतर्યું છે from
I'm bringing
somewhere.
you to something very close to, if you can catch this, you've got the answer.
So it has come from somewhere. It has
Right.
come from consciousness or
No, it is the content of consciousness.
content of
It is
consciousness.
the content of consciousness. Consciousness is the field in which all this plays,
Right.
right? But I am not aware of my own thoughts because it is lying in my consciousness, but because I don't pay attention to them, there's lack of awareness of the thoughts, right? But they are lying in my consciousness. They are lying in my consciousness. But when we use the word awareness, actually we interchange consciousness and awareness.
Right.
Yeah, but that's okay. But they are lying in my consciousness.
So from that consciousness, which is lying in my consciousness, those thoughts come, which is having a thought.
Having a thought.
Huh. Now, whatever our state of being, that
What
would.
happens between having a thought and thinking a thought?
That's what I'm saying. The state of being would take over, and
No, I'm asking you in relation to feeling of I.
feeling of I.
What happens at that moment? Supposing I have a thought that he owes me money. That is a thought. Right? Now, with that thought, he has come in front of me. What will come?
Come into present moment.
Yeah. Present moment, kharu. But what will come?
That he owes me something.
See, it is something which is very beautiful to observe inside. I'm trying to bring you to something very, very precious. Something very, very precious. And if you can catch this, you caught it. He owes me money, right? And I see him, so the thought comes that he owes me money, right? Now, the immediate reaction is irritation. The immediate reaction is irritation, which I have to pause.
Overcome or pause.
Pause. right? Now I don't pause the irritation. I don't pause the irritation. Then what is happening to the feeling of I?
It gets reduced by the thought.
Right. So I feel a movement of the feeling of I. Irritation is what you call kidnapping my feeling of I and taking it from having a thought into
Thinking a
thinking
thought.
the thought. I have to say I to the thought to think the thought. Can you understand?
Yeah.
If I don't say I to the thought, I cannot think the thought. So if I pause the irritation and I don't allow any other thoughts to take away my feeling of I, can you understand? Get what I'm trying? Then the feeling of I remains with me, and that is the beginning of real I.
Wow.
You understand what I'm trying to say? So each moment, thoughts will come, feelings will come, and they will try in some way. If they are negative, they will steal my feeling. I have to pause there. And they will try to take away my feeling of I. What is it like? In real life, what is it like? See, just yesterday we were talking to someone. And both of us are telling her that whatever your in-laws say, whatever your, what do you call, your husband has died in an accident, your husband's this thing, what do you call, brother and his wife or sister, whatever, don't sign any papers. Right? Don't sign any papers. Okay. Now, here he owes me money. He has come in front of me. The thought has come, he owes me money. With that, there is irritation because he is not paying for a long time. Right? So, that irritation is trying to kidnap my feeling of I. And if it does, what has happened? I have signed the check. I have signed the check. Right? I have signed the check of anger. I have signed the check of jealousy. I have signed the check of suspicion. I have signed the check of. Can you get what I'm trying to say? And if you can bring your inner observation to this level, where you see how nature is stealing your I. Nature is stealing your I. Each moment it is trying to steal your I through thoughts, through emotions, through emergencies, through this, through that. And if we can hold that I, don't allow it to steal the I, then slowly that I will give us the feeling of real I. Real I. Inside. But the minute it is stolen, it goes. It goes. The check is signed.
So there should have been practice of pause for many years or so.
Yeah. I'm just opening this,
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you can observe this process, you will bypass the whole process of self-observation and layers and so many things. Can you see? Because it's a long process. You observe your states, you observe your moods, you observe your buffers, you observe your habits, you observe this, and you go layer by layer, which I have done. Right? And this is such an easy thing that just sense the feeling of I each moment of your life. Where am I getting the feeling of I from? Such a fast shortcut. Ne? So we experience something which belongs to us, which is the most valuable part of us. It is being taken away into another state. Vritti sarupyam etaratra. Right? Where is the drashta? The drashta has gone with whichever vritti, farvagyo hai, with whichever vritti. Can you understand? But if we can at that moment
That is why I'm saying then conversations or talking to others stop altogether. There is nothing to talk in life then.
For a very limited period, for 1 or 2 years.
Then topics will change.
Then you will become much more involved in life than anyone else was in life.
Okay.
But then you won't give your feeling of I anywhere else. You won't sign the check anywhere. Right? So then you will enjoy life without signing the check. Right? Can I finish this?
Yeah.
Can I just finish this? Now, where will this begin, the process? Because again, we have talked about sensitivity. So, the first stirrings that irritation is coming will start with the muscular system. And if I practice my tense and relax properly in the morning, I will get an advanced warning that I am moving into irritation. Irritation is coming. I will pause there. I won't allow that thought to steal my feeling of I. So, there is a forgetfulness of the feeling of I as self, and there is now a feeling of I as anger or whatever the train of thoughts, right? And that is why Gurdjieff calls it as self-forgetting, right? Self-forgetting. So can you see all the time we are putting this very, very precious, our most precious possession, my feeling of I, into negative things, into negative states, into what you call reactions, into anger, into jealousy, whatever, right? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It is, Karna was born as Surya Putra, right? Surya Putra means feeling of I. I'll just give you an example, this thing. I'm not writing on the board. So if we take Gurdjieff, there's a feeling of I which we get from negative emotions he calls as 96, right? There's a feeling of I which we get from the roles in life, right, that he calls as 48. Then there's a feeling of I which comes from planetary magnetism, right? We say we are feeling the irritation coming in and all that. And that is from planets 24. And then there's a feeling of I which we get from the sun, which is real I, and that is 12, he calls it. 12. I'm just giving you an example. So we say Karna is Surya Putra, he is 12, but he is brought up as Sut Putra. He is brought up as Sut Putra. So our feeling of I comes from the sun. We do the Gayatri Mantra. Feeling of I comes from the sun. And we are putting it into the gutter, 96, into negative states, in the negative emotions. Can you get now what I'm trying to say, right? And this is the story of Karna in the Mahabharata, the story of Karna, right? Yeah, you are asking a question.
Yeah. So let's say the feeling of I, right? So we pause it and we don't want it to,
We pause here.
yeah, we pause it. So we move in a higher dimension so that event will not occur in the future.
Which?
The event, something that you said that someone owes you the money and the person comes in front of you and you pause it because you don't allow to express the irritations that he owes me the money, right? So at that time you pause, so you move little bit high, so that event in future will stop or it may occur in the future.
That's not the way to look at it. That is not the way to look at it. Okay, I'll just take that. I'll just take that. It's not the way to look at it, right? Now, whenever we complain about any event in life, are we putting more of our feeling of I into it or less into it? Supposing I got a headache, but I'm complaining about my headache, right, then I'm putting more of my feeling of I into pain, right? So this feeling of I is God. This feeling of I is spirit. It is Atma, right? But we waste it all over the place, right? Right from my pen to my bank balance to my friend to my country, we waste it all over the place. This feeling of I. Now, because of this expectation that tomorrow will be better or the next moment will be better, and life is life, there is always this movement of like and dislike. So, we are always putting our feeling of I into like and dislike. And when we can rise to that level of consciousness where we don't allow it to even go into like and dislike, then we have come to a state where now no events in life can affect us. Event or life affect us. The real feeling of I will be a universal feeling of I. It will not be an individual feeling of I, my pen or my, it's not that individual feeling of I. It will not be a divisible feeling of I want to go for movie also, but I also want to get up in the morning. So two different I's, right? Do my exercises in the morning. So it will be just one single I, right? And there will be a feeling of grace, a feeling of gratefulness, because the real I comes from the higher. It comes from the higher. And when it descends, that real feeling of I, there is a feeling of gratefulness, happiness, joy inside, right? So we there. Now I just want to touch upon one thing, then I'll just answer your question. The feeling of I which comes from meritoriousness. I have done something good. I have done something good, right? And this we must understand, must understand. Do you mind if I talk a little bit about Jainism?
No, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I was once in the train, and I was on the top berth like this, and there were 3 other berths, right? And those 3 people were talking till late in the night, and they were all of the Jain religion. So I was just listening and I was enjoying their talk, right? So they are saying, to reach emancipation, they were talking in Gujarati, right? To reach emancipation, you cannot get it in any other yoni, you have to be born in a, what do you call? Jain yoni, right? Otherwise it is not possible, right? So now this is the feeling of I which is coming with superiority of religion. Can you understand? It is the feeling of I which is coming with superiority of religion. I'm not criticizing anything there, right? So this is a feeling of meritoriousness. I am better than you. I am better than you. And this is a very dangerous feeling of I. Very, very dangerous. I'll give you another example. There's one group, sometimes they call me for their meetings, and they believe in one guru. The guru is no longer there. Now, one of their meetings, people who have been with the guru, they come and they talk, and they asked me to sit in one of the meetings, so I sat over there. And he's saying, we don't have to do anything. The guru has promised that all those who come to him will reach. Can you see? So now in all my talks it is make effort, make effort, make effort. So they're all coming out of the talk and they're telling me, આપણે તો કંઈ કરવાનું છે જ નહીં, તમે શું બોલો છો, right? We have to do nothing, the guru has promised, right? Can you understand now? That is it gives you a false sense of superiority, right? If somebody could give it to somebody, Huh? It would be very easy, right? So the feeling of superiority which comes, the feeling of I which comes with superiority of religion, superiority of what you call caste, superiority of what you call color of the skin, right? All these feeling of I's, these are come under the feeling of meritoriousness. And the same feeling comes when somebody, what you call, praises us. The feeling that I am better. When somebody praises us, the same way, and it has to be observed over there, very distinctly observed, because we may not be able to observe it as a part of our religion, right? But what you call, we may be able to observe it when somebody praises us and says good things about us. Immediately get into that observing which feeling of I is coming with this, because that is, again, we have to be free of that. We are passing on a higher feeling of I into something which is a part of our self-love, right? So I just wanted to touch upon that. Now, talking about events in life, we will take 4 separate states of karma. 4 separate states of karma. The lowest we will call as the law of accident. Law of accident. That is, the event comes and it becomes an accident for me, right? So, supposing I appear for an exam or an interview or something and I fail, and I become very upset and I'm depressed, and can you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm not in a good state. So that event of exam was an accident. Can you understand? Don't take accident as just 2 cars banging with each other. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? That event became an accident, right? The food was served on the table and I did not like anything. So I'm very upset and irritated. So that event of the serving of food became an accident, right? So where we live in like and dislike, right? And we are always running after like and running away from dislike. We are living under the law of accident. Everything that happens in our life is nothing but an accident. You like it or you dislike it, right? Now we rise a little in consciousness and we come under a different law of the law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect, right? Now the karma changes over here. So at this point I appear for the exam, I fail in the exam, right? But I don't get depressed, right? I say I failed and I don't complain about anything. There is no what you call finding fault with anything. I say I'm going to make a what you call more effort tomorrow. More effort tomorrow. So then it is not an accident. Can you get what I'm trying to say? It has improved my understanding, right? May have brought me to a higher state of consciousness, right? And it makes me make more effort. So an event comes, and instead of falling down, I pause over here. I don't allow myself to fall down, right? And my new understanding or my new state of consciousness, if I've risen in consciousness, that becomes a seed. So instead of the seed of accident, I'm sowing either the seed of understanding or the seed of consciousness, which will lead to a different effect than the law of accident. Law of accident. Now, supposing I'm under the law of accident, right? And you said one event has come in my life and I brought consciousness, right? Am I going to be free of that event? In one way, I'm free of that event. But that event may come in a different form for me to rise in consciousness. Can you understand? It may come in a different form for me to rise in consciousness. Can you understand? I'll give another example. There was this person called Gopal, right? And he had a factory in a place called, in Maharashtra, I've forgotten the place, Khamgaon in Maharashtra. And he's saying in the morning he had to go for an important meeting to Bombay. So he was leaving early in the morning, driving to Bombay. So Ramdullah Bapu is telling him, you cancel the meeting, right? You don't go to Bombay, you go tomorrow. So he's saying, no, I have to go for the meeting, right? So then Bapu said, okay, I'm coming with you to Mumbai. And they had an accident. In the accident, he had covered Gopal like this, right? Nothing happened to Gopal. Bapu had multiple fractures all over the body. Multiple fractures, right? And they took him to Northcote Hospital, nursing home. And he stayed there for nearly 2.5 months in Northcote Hospital. So many places in his body, the steel rods and this and that were put, right? Now, in 2.5 months, all the doctors of that hospital would come to meet him, sit with him and joke with him. All the nurses would come to sit with him and joke with him. After 2.5 months, he had bought the hospital also. Can you understand? One hand was permanently like this in his life, right? See? So now, the accident came, is the same thing which could have happened in law of accident, but for him it was he sowed a different seed. He sowed a different seed which had a tremendous effect. Can you understand? So, what I'm trying to say is that the event can be same over here, the event can be same over here, but each one, it is, in one you're sent to a higher state of consciousness, right? And in one you fall to a lower state of consciousness, right? And the event can be the same. An accident can happen to you and me also, right? Then there is the third line of karma, which we can call the law of fate. Right? Now, in this law, I have understood this whole law that a certain seed invites a certain effect. A certain cause invites a certain effect. And suddenly in your life, you become aware that you want certain effects to come in your life. So you consciously sow
Seeds.
certain seeds. Consciously sow certain seeds. You have the power of that. You have got that siddhi in this of sowing the right seed and inviting the effect which you desire. The effect which you desire. And then we can have one more law of karma. The law of destiny. The law of destiny. Right? So, in the law of destiny, even though you have the power to sow the seeds, you don't want to sow any seeds. You only want to respond to whatever, event life brings in front of you. You don't want to invite any event, nothing. You just move through life like an ordinary person, right? And you you respond to each event with your level of consciousness. And you don't want to change anything. There is no desire left to change anything or to invite any event or effect in life, right? So, one day I asked Mr. Tavaria that you can see everything this way, then tell me the exact moment of your death. Why aren't you telling me? So he's saying that is one thing I will not go into, right? I know and I'm conscious, then it is one thing. I don't know and I'm ready for it wherever it comes and I'm conscious. Totally different thing. Can you understand? So, there. Or in the Hindu, this thing we have the Ramayana, right? Ram knew what Sita was going to be, but still he played the game. Whatever event life brought in front of him, he went through that event. Right? He did not want to change anything. He did not want to change anything. Right? So the four different lines of karma: the law of accident, the law of cause and effect, right? Where you sow a new seed of non-mechanical. I don't know if it answers your question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, shall we stop here? Okay. Thank you. Good night.
Yeah.
Good night.